Now that we have heard the news, we shall analyze the news. Skipping those parts pertaining to death, disease, and pestilence, trusting they, in turn, will skip over us. Page 9. As men get older, they write about age, whereas it's equal regarding stupidity. As in warm reminiscences. My analyzation tells me that age here is very wide, the word, metaphorically. It's the entire aspect of the cruder, basic, automatic parts of men's minds being inexorably pulled to the past. That is, that any good, ordinary, literate person will almost refuse to read anything that you open up with an essay. It can be on world affairs, the breakdown of world socialism, the coming collapse of the world economy, whatever it is. This man, you remember tonight, he says when he looks down, if it doesn't open up and say, I was just thinking, he said I, but it's I, having majored in economics earlier, I, having recently visited the erstwhile Yugoslav Republic. He said he wouldn't even read it. Every time a man says I, he is reminiscing, because there is no I here. You got to think about it. People do not ordinarily analyze it in that way, but you have got to be looking at least back over your shoulder momentarily. That's why people do it. Because you ask a man if you could actually freeze the electrochemical systems that are a man's nervous system up here, if you could suddenly freeze it and you ask a man, who are you? He would be, I don't mean just dumbfounded, he would be dumb in the sense that he could not talk. Because if you insisted and you could stop things and say, what are you right now? The answer is, you can fill it in, whatever is your favorite animal. I'm a possum, I'm a tiger, I'm a hippo, I'm a bluebird. So, as men get older, they write about age. That is, they are continually, whether they're literally writing or not, but this is a good basis for the jumping off for the metaphor into the great world of symbolism itself. That they're writing it here, but they are continually talking about. They're writing odes, composing great lyric poems to age. They don't know it. Well, such as the item from a night or so ago that pointed out that one of the defensive mechanisms that man uses, that life uses itself, is that as men begin to wear out, they say, I'm beginning to wise up. And that is so easy to point out, and I know I can get several chuckles and no problem, but it's not a laugh. It's not for the intent of laugh production. But all you got to do is visit, for instance, any religious institution, any building, anywhere on this planet at any given time, if they're in operation and several people are there, several visitors, clients, patients, whatever the hell they call them. There'll be people there that will be glad to reminisce with you or say, well, what are you doing here? I've always been interested in this religion. What do you do? Are you in favor of it? Yes, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm finally glad I came to my senses. And then he'll start doing his literature thing. He'll say, I used to be a damn drunk. I used to blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I took drugs. I wrecked so many cars. I've ruined 3 marriages. I lived in such a way that my children will not even speak to me. And I mean, bring tears to your eyes. You don't even need a TV and a soap opera. There it is. And they'll say, I don't know. I guess in a way, though, I learned from it. Because I'm going to tell you what now. Now, I've been sober. What month is it? I've been sober now for going on 2 years. I got this real wonderful lady that I met. Got her own trailer. We've been thinking about marriage. I'm back at work now. And he's saying all those things, but now notice, now don't just laugh. And you suddenly, if you know anything, now I'm going to make it easier for you, but then we'll back up and make it a little more subtle. You look around, and the guy is, let's just pick out an age, is 50 years old. And hardly anybody except a triathlon world-class athlete can keep up that kind of pace at 50. To be out drinking every night, picking up 5 different women a night, you're either not up to it physically or you're not up to it in other ways. But suddenly the man says, I've seen the light. Now, I don't know, I guess it's kind of a thing you had to go through, but finally I saw what I was doing to myself. All right, clinically speaking, that's known as bullshit. If there was a clinic that knew what they were doing. Because all it is the man is worn out. But now at least you laugh at it. If that were not true, again, for instance, all of the religious institutions would be closed up. We'd have all these priests, rabbis, janitors out of work, on the streets, on the public. Our taxes would go up, so you should be thankful. There's nothing wrong with it. But now rather than look at it as on an institutional level and just leave it there, this is what people are doing constantly. Because what it amounts to, going back to our division, our operational division of man hormonally into the hormonal and the neural, what is usually been referred to as the age of maturity is when a man, and I'm using now man non-sexually, and a minute I was going to point out there's a difference between men and women, and you can do it yourself. It's not that hard, assuming you're one or the other. That the age of maturity is when your hormones have reached their peak and then you start dying hormonally. In times past, it was considered to be more or less 21. The herd's getting bigger, the herd's getting faster. People now mature in the ordinary sense. In the hormonal sense, they mature earlier, so they start dying earlier. They start getting worn out because it's a literal fact. We'll put it in a crude way. This is accepted by even ordinary people. That, for instance, to take the heart of hormonal life, sexuality. That according to all statistics, all reports, and sounds right. Men they'd say reach their sexual peak as far as their hormones. They call it sexual peak. What it was, 25, and women it was a lot later. But the point was, at least in that one area, after 25, it started going downhill. They were either charitable or the men lied to them. I'll put it to you. Because it was never that far along. Now it's even less. And looked at another way, this is no secret. Now women are beginning their menstrual cycle earlier in life. In other words, they're becoming sexually, that is hormonally mature. Now go to women. Now men and women are reaching hormonal maturity. It's not right or wrong, it just is. As you people know, I'm not hearkening back to some elusive, imaginary, better day. It's not that. But now people are hormonally maturing sooner. It's just a fact. But there's also another fact they don't notice. Men and women are now starting to die earlier. Because the sooner you mature, the sooner you begin to die hormonally. This is what this item is about. As men get older, they write about age. It's the basis of warm reminiscences. And they get a little older, and it goes from being warm to being hot, and then it goes from hot to being pissed. That is, the world's going downhill. Everything's going to hell. In times past, some of you are old enough, things are speeding up now, which is part of the fun of being alive, the additional fun, is 100 years ago. Easily. Your grandmother, your great-great-grandmother and father, their life, whatever hormonally and literally, whatever tempo it started out, they lived out on a farm somewhere. That's where they were born. They had to run hormonally by the nature, by the change of the seasons. They had their own tempo, but it did not actually vary. They didn't even notice any variation over a 60-year period, one lifetime. They were born at a certain tempo, at a certain place. They married the guy down the adjoining farm. They stayed within sight of their own families, just a few miles away. And they died operating at almost the same tempo. Now it goes faster. It just is. And now, in one lifetime, what I was going to say is for the fun of being alive now, as you can see, it changed. The obvious ones being like such as technology, that your grandmother had never even heard of people flying, and then it was people on the moon. But now it goes so much faster in one lifetime that what I was going to get at is it used to take people just more or less. I was going through the aging process of seeing people end up being pissed. It used to take people, just for instance, let's say 40 years. They had to be a good 40 years old to really feel like, and to be able to express it literally, that life is going to hell. That it usually took somebody about your parents' age when you were a teenager, somebody 40 or 50, to turn around, to music, whatever the music was, and say, God damn, that ain't music, that's noise. Or what kind of clothes, what kind of haircut? Jesus, I don't know what's happening. Nowadays, you got people 20 years old doing that. Turn around at people, 15 saying, what kind of haircut is that? Back to the news item. As men get older, they write about age. That is the warm reminiscences. And you only got a short period of time, because the point is you begin to die hormonally by the age of 20 nowadays in the Western world. You have reached the peak hormonally. You got another 40 years to live, let's say. But you have already reached the peak. It's just a matter of, when you get around to going over to the funeral home and being, get your measurements and put a little money down. It's not a matter of, are you dead? It's just, how close are you? It's like, though, when it's a funeral and they're all breaking up and they go on the grave and they're leaving, and the minister looks around and there's an old guy, surely it must be 100 years old. And he starts wandering off, and the preacher goes up and he says, there ain't much use in you going home. That's the point. That at the age of 20, you're hormonally dying. As men get older, they write about age, whereas its equal regarding stupidity. Stupidity, now, would you expand that in the same kind of charitable fashion? Metaphorically, that I did age, that means much more than age. Stupidity means much more than that. Let's go now from hormonally, that men write consistently as soon as they begin to die. Age 20. After that, their talk, their writing, their literature, their artistic dreams, their artistic realities, their efforts become a reminiscence of when they were extremely hormonally alive. Sometime, let's just say, pre-age 20, just say that, to make the figures easy to talk about. This item says, where is its equal regarding stupidity? Instead of just stupidity, how about where is its equal neurally? What do men reminisce about in a neural sense? Oh, let's think about it real hard. Okay, nothing. Well, I just thought I'd save you from, going. They don't. And there's several ways to look at it. One is hormonally. You start dying, let's say, within 20 years. So you've got at least those 20 years to look back and have warm reminiscences thereabout. Neurally, may I suggest, in a comparable manner, a man is not necessarily alive, much less at some sort of discernible peak, for 20 years. How about that the threshold, the door, the envelope, the window, as they say in NASA, maybe is open a split second? What the hell you got to reminisce about? Uh-oh. Okay, ordinary man. Get a few drinks in him, or just his little heart gets a pity pat, or he just attended a funeral, whatever. He begins to reminisce about his hormonal past. Red Corvette goes by, blonde-headed girl. He goes, hey, boy, when I was young, boy, I'd jump my car and be after her. Well, if you call my station wagon a car. He'll begin to reminisce. Boy, I just could put them away. I used to stay drunk all weekend. He'd do all that. But you do not hear people reminisce about their neural activity. You don't hear a man sitting around going, he suddenly sees an ad for a lecture on atomic physics, or the Nobel Prize winner in chemistry or medicine, and a man look at it and go, boy, I remember when I was young and could think. You follow? No, that's it. Where is its parallel regarding stupidity? That people will do, and everyone understands it. That men will say, look at those kids. Look at everybody drunk, raising hell, trying to pick up women. I can remember when I was young and I could do all that. You never hear, not even a little bit, of people doing that regarding their neural life. And my suggestion was, nobody seemed to like it, assuming I didn't cloud it too much. Could it be that it goes so quick that you got damn little to even reminisce about? How are you going to drag out reminiscences, like of a split second? That like your own little earthbound would-be space agency, a little NASA you look up, and the clouds and everything just right, and there's a window of opportunity of launching, and it just, you know how clouds and weather, all right, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, all right? So you had a minute of you had your intellectual, at least potential peak, as opposed to 20 years hormonally. That's 60 seconds. How long can you, work on that? How many reminiscences can you make? How many different ways could you tell it, even if you ever tried, before you drove everybody nuts, including you? 60 seconds is hardly enough for an average mind to even know that it's thinking. How's it going to reminisce? What's it going to write about? Yes, I can remember when I was young, I could think along with the best of them. Hell, I could think for days at a time. I could stay up all weekend sometimes and think. I know it's hard to believe looking at me now, but I could sometimes think without not even a chaser. I just think straight. Many times, hey, I could pick up 2 or 3 different whole series of ideas in one night. I'm talking about in the same night. I'm not talking about just do it once. I could, think for a while and then, maybe have a cigarette and go back out for a while. Pick up another one and do it again. Guess those days are gone. Yep. Point was, they're gone so fast that you ask most people, do you understand that? And they go, what? I just made up another news item. One guy said to himself, after hearing this, he went, where was I when I peaked? I think you ought to write that one down for a news item, Gary. I need to include that. As a change of pace, since we're doing it all the time, a viewer sends in her own description of civilization. It's all talk and paper. All talk and paper. I was going to go with that one, but you can do that one. It's very close. If they pulled it out. To this one. While apologizing for a relatively harmless faux pas he had unintentionally committed toward a friend, this one man, his companion, after he tried the little apology, his friend said, it's okay, forget it, because it's the thought that counted. And the guy that thought he'd committed a little offense was struck that that's all it can be. When we're talking about the non-hormonal world, man's civilized world, which is the non-hormonal world, it's all a matter of it's the thought that counts. You can say, well, if somebody had good intentions, somebody had bad intentions, and you could try and be magnanimous, charitable, psychologically an apologist for man, and say, well, it's the thought that counts. Save your gesture, save your whine, and go, well, it's the thought that counts. What else is there? Of course, 2-legged people cannot deal with this, because if they did, they could no longer stand up. They would have to practice intellectual interruptus. They could not continue screwing this idea. They could not sleep with this idea. You're left with, well, no. It can't be just good intentions, bad intentions. It's all a matter of, well, it's the thought that counts. That sounds like you could take it as being literal, such as 2 friends. You could take it that one of them said something, made some little sarcastic comment, and the one who said it suddenly thought, well, I shouldn't have said that because that could have hurt so and so's feelings. He says, I didn't mean it that way. Now, it could either be like that by all appearances, all descriptions, was unintentional. And his friend doesn't take it personally, and he said, that's okay, it was a thought that counted. You were just being friendly, and you meant to make it a compliment. Don't mean you have to make up the example. He started out trying to make a compliment, and he thought it ended up kind of insulting, like a backhanded compliment that was almost an insult. And his friend says, no, it was a thought that counted. All the way from that to someone who was just saying more in a theoretical sense about something that they heard occurred that the person says. I'm expanding the spectrum of possibility. That this other person says, well, it was a thought that counted. And what they were doing, it was sort of giving an attempted philosophical, theoretical, humanistic overview of man. Like, well, let's don't pick on humans. Sometimes, it's a thought that counts. In other words, almost a hollow maxim, as far as they're concerned. And yet this man put no conditions on it. He said it struck him that, wait a minute, that's all it can be. You don't have to say, or you don't have to condition it and say, well, I agree with the notion in many cases that it's the thought that counts. It doesn't matter what occasion. It doesn't matter what the circumstances. It doesn't matter whether it was apparently intentional, unintentional, unnoticed, anything in between. It suddenly struck him that that's a useless comment. That says nothing. Well, that's like getting so close to a point-blank wall that you say, can you see the wall? And you go, what? What? You can't see it. Because it suddenly struck him, what else is there? And then you're a world, not either good or bad, not either a phony explanation, not a cheap apology, not a sincere apology. It doesn't matter what. That at that level, everything is a matter of, well, it's the thought that counts. The part that I might have made more confusing, you understand that would stop all of the rugby in life? That is, you understood the other one that says, be it racial, religious, political, all singular human conflict. Human conflict is rugby. That would stop all the sport. Of course, it would be the reality, if it could be practiced, of all religions, which, of course, they can't succeed, God forbid. Pardon the turn of phrase, I guess. But that would be it. No more theorizing, no more attempting, no more rituals. That if you understand that at man's singular world, we're not talking about the hormonal world now. We're not talking about that somebody comes up and kicks you in the shin, or somebody comes up and grabs food out of your mouth, your family's mouth. We're talking about the singular human conflicts, the ones that now civilized, decent, right-thinking people over which they fight. Only the crude sorts would fight over sex anymore, fight over women, fight over land. Politics. Ideas. What are we? Are we savages or civilized men? And all the civilized men stand up and say, civilized men. And you say, in that case, follow me, we'll go kill some people over ideologies. Or at least try to, stick our tongues out or rattle our academic swords in our scabbards and see if we can't frighten them. That's what it is. That would stop it all. If you understood, well, wait a minute. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter what they say, and then you go, what? And they go, wait a minute, maybe you misunderstood me. It doesn't matter whether they do that. Now, remember, it's still talking about neural, not hormonal, not about actual physical, not an actual adversarial relationship on a physical level, whether it be individuals or whole groups of people. When it's on the neural level, it's all a matter of, well, it's the thought that counts. That would stop all the games. Everybody, all the rugby players, their pants would fall down. The beautiful striped jerseys would all run together, the colors. Just hard things would happen. Well, if that's the way you feel. And to think what I did. I was the one that said that I was hoping on your behalf that in turn that death, disease, and pestilence would pass us by. And this is the thanks I get. I'm turning in my rabbi's collar, or whatever you call it. In the neural ballroom, even the cripple dance. In the ordinary ballroom, only the cripple dance. You've got to be crippled to dance in the ordinary neural ballroom. That's why you do not go out in the streets, if you could spot them, which there's the trick, because then you'd be one of them. But you cannot walk out in the neural streets in the city and find someone who's not crippled. But they're invisible. Or at least they're quiet to such a degree that in an audible sense they become almost invisible, and you'll have to work on that. They're non-existent. So to say that in the neural ballroom, even the crippled dance, even indeed. But to dance there, you've got to be crippled. For life to be stabilized, you have got to be involved in partisan thought. You've got to be a two-legged creature. And if you've got two legs, and of course the part being, if you only have two legs, one of them is bad. There's no way out. If you got two legs, you're crippled. You understand, two legs is meaning now exclusively, no more than. But if you have two legs, if you have only two legs, then you're crippled. It's not a matter of maybe, it's not a matter of, well, let's talk about it. You know, go talk to the birds. That's their job to tell you, well, wait a minute, let's discuss this. There's no discussion. If you got two legs, that is only two legs, you're crippled. All right, you're crippled or dead, if you want to be technical. If you're alive with two legs, you're crippled. What else do you want? How to tell if a man is ordinary? He will ask another man to intercede with life on his behalf. If we were ordinary, you could take that religiously. That'd be the easiest one to start, but it's everywhere. It's all forms of the herd. It's the need to have anybody next to you. It's the need for any sort of bovine companionship. And not physically. We're not talking about hormonally, because at that level, almost everybody needs somebody unless you have a world-class probably body odor or some sort of genital deformity. Everybody needs somebody at the hormone level if you're just fairly sane and crippled. But neurally, everybody keeps seeking somebody to intercede on their behalf with life. You still rolling?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll assume it could stand a smidgen of clarification. Intercede on someone's behalf. That would obviously be back to religion if we've got to jump from somewhere. That is what religion, the professional practitioners thereof, that would seem to be their job. You know, a priest, a rabbi, somebody that stands as you go to them, and it's their job to be religious. It's their job to intercede on your behalf, to tell you what to do, how to make amends for offending the gods, how to get in their graces. So, there's the obvious one. But what's not so obvious is now leave that. All politics, all government. That's not that hard to see. Now, people might ordinarily want to rebel against the idea, but that's exactly what government is, which is the same thing as politics, just a different name. Most of them get paid better. Well, they can steal more. Is they're interceding on your behalf, but now forget God, they seem to be interceding on your behalf for life itself. Now, ordinary people would want to translate into, well, bad luck. Intercede on my behalf for injustice. Go a little past that. And then you're into a non-tangible world wherein, that's what I was talking about, that everyone is seeking somebody to intercede on their behalf on the whole basis of wanting a neural soulmate. Neural, not hormonal, of trying to get somebody to go along with your opinion. You're asking somebody, well, here's what I think about politics or religion. What do you think? That's it. You're asking somebody to intercede. Put it to you another way. You're asking somebody to think for you. Now, that's real crude, I know. Actual thought. Some kind of nonpartisan thought. Because you'll say, well, I think about politics in the X way. I mean, I've thought about it and I've read about it. What do you think? You ask your friend. And your friend says, well, I can see some validity in what you say, but I have been personally more attracted to the Y position. In a sense, they're interceding in life with thought on your behalf, because if there was anything to be literally gained from this, you would benefit. You would take some of what he said or she said, and you would sort of add it, and you'd go, well, I never looked at it that way. I am expanding my own storehouse of information. I'm expanding my own thinking process, which you don't. Not at any meaningful level in an individual lifetime. And so you're constantly, under many other guises, many times just apparently on the basis of friendship, on the basis of just seeking companionship, just on the basis of wanting somebody to talk to, but what you are doing, in fact, vis-a-vis the potential ability to think for yourself in a nonpartisan, artificial, non-natural, useless, non-goal-oriented manner. Anything other than that, you are seeking intellectually other people to intercede with life, with thought, with the potential of life. You're asking somebody else to intercede on your behalf. Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Will you help me? But then you got to be careful. It's not help me do it. It's like, will you come over, and hold my hand while the water rises? Will you join me in my corner? Will you be with me in my closet? Would you come over here and stand next to me as we drowned? To make it real crude, if you're... Hormonally, one more time, people, I say hormonally, since it's not our job anyway, making some judgment of this, but you must see that there is nothing to be said from any view, unless you're an absolute idiot, that there's anything wrong with hormonal relationships. Sex, friendship, just having a friend, just even a stranger will come up on the street, say, hey, how you doing? It's just a pack animal. I mean, hell, let's face it, even the worst of us deserve at least as much companionship as a hyena. Come on, give yourself a break. So that's not in question. But beyond that, what is man's social life? What is civilization? You're continually trying to get someone else to intercede. This comes down to a crude level, with crude people, I might point out, is why is the basis of it, of the idea of the monastic life of people who claim that they're attempting to do something extraordinary, be extraordinarily religious, metaphysical, etc. What's one of the common historic approaches they take? Is they will cut themselves off as much as possible from the hormonal life. We'll go move in a monastery, nothing but us one sex, men or women. We'll wear nothing but old ratty robes, old army blankets that we find in the gutter. We'll do nothing but eat gruel or broccoli just over and over. We won't sleep. We'll sleep down on bricks. They're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to, in a very crude way, strip themselves of the need for an intercession, but they're doing it at the only level they know how. They're doing it at the hormonal level. All right, I'm going to do without sex, which is one of the basics that you can literally do without, so I hear. I know I don't. I'm with you. I don't want to think about it, and of course you can't go without sleep, and you can't go without food. But, so they give up sex. There's the one of the three that you can, by all accounts, I hate to keep saying it, but that's the one that you could give up, or can give up. So then the other two, the main ones, to keep just the hormone, the physical body going, what will they do? They'll take those two and cut them down to what appears to be the absolute minimum. We'll just eat enough until we drop. And then our brothers will hopefully get us up and put a little gruel in our mouth to get us back up. And then we'll go, until we'll fast some more until we drop. Or we'll stay up until our brains just turn into gruel. And then we'll take a nap, and then somebody will slap us, hey, you already had 2 minutes sleep. Yes. And then, of course, they believe they begin to meditate and talk to God, which those of you that ever took bennies or drank too much coffee, you stay up 2 days in a row and talking to God's child's play. I assume enough of you. Little good amphetamine and get it going, just sleep deprivation and talking to, you can talk to people that make God, seem like the guy next door. So it's not that hard to have mystical experiences. Brother Theodore or somebody comes to after, having been passed out and he's down to, 70 pounds. He hadn't slept in 3 weeks. And for him to, his face kind of glow, which faces also glow just before you're going to die, but they don't like to hear that. And some of the other brothers, revive him. And they say, oh, you got such a smile on your face. I bet some kind of extraordinary experience, wasn't it? And he goes, at any rate, what I was going to point out is they are attempting to do this very thing, but they're doing it on the only level that they can see how to do. They're trying to divorce themselves from the intercedence, the intercession between them and what they usually call it God, or mystical God is what they normally call it, that they're trying to get directly to. And all that is, I'm suggesting, I'm telling you, we're off the tape, is a very crude, continuing, common reflection of, and their attempt to cut out the intercession between a person neurally, between an individual, to cut out the intercession of the herd, collective intelligence, what everybody else thinks, partisan thought. It's got the intercession between that and what they call at the crude level God, and what I'm telling you would be thinking in a place in your brain that's never been explored. The place is real weird, a lot of fun. It's just, it almost doesn't qualify as thinking, as I finally threw in one of them tonight. But that is what they're after. It's what everyone's after that's sane. But you notice they, instead of them trying to approach it, being able to, that I'm trying to cut out the intercession of any sort between me and thinking, which is the same thing as the common belief. I'm trying to cut out the intercession between me and God, between me and the man's greatest state. And to them, the greatest state is harmonal. They might say otherwise. They'll claim spiritual, but why you laugh is reality is they'll pass out or deprive themselves of sleep, starve themselves, until they begin to dream all kinds of things in your brain, which you can do with a ball-peen hammer. You can stick your finger in a socket. And so they begin to have this, and they think, well, I'm getting directly to, or I'm getting closer to, a true mystical experience, true commune with God. They're about to get their brain fired up in a place that is not normally active. Past that very crude, many thousands of year old attempt is what this news item was about. That if you could think in a certain way, then you're not, this is the hormonal, it's nothing, you're not going to accomplish anything. You've got to know this by now, starving yourself, unless you're trying to get in a new dress or something. But as far as, well, I'm going to fast, or I will give up sex, that still gives me. Every time I think about that, I shouldn't say I'm sure you join me. At least you got to hope. Well, anybody gives up sex, give up food and all that. If anybody gives up sex, you kind of in your heart, aren't you rooting for them? Well, by God, I hope you have a mystical experience. Good-naturedly, you think, well, you simple shit, I hope you get something, for all that, for that kind of sacrifice. At any rate, you must know, at the hormonal level, at the physical level, there is nothing directly to be done. Just nothing to fooling with the hormonal, the physical level, to do anything with this. You're not going to starve yourself into thinking more. You're not going to give up sex to such a degree that suddenly your mind will think more. You're not going to do it with giving up sleep. You're not going to do it to leave a nice condo and go live in a tree, go live under a rock. It's not going to do anything. Now, we just got through that you can do such as that and begin to dream. But it is not literally going to make you think anymore. It's, in a sense, in a real operational sense, two different areas, even though it's not. But taking the crude approach, you cannot retroactively, you cannot anciently, in reverse, that is hormonally, make yourself now suddenly be neurally in the future. You got to do it yourself. You got to do it up here. And of course, I know it can't be done. We've already established that. But what you are attempting to do is to intercede between you and any possible, or you're trying to stop any possible intercession between you and thinking. And let me try to make it clear if I didn't before, that includes everything. That excludes nothing. Not right or wrong. Anything anybody's already thought is intercession. I mean, if you sit and go, well, now wait a minute. Even Whitehead said so and so. Or wait a minute, even Goethe said so and so. Even Buddha thought, well, that's intercession. It doesn't matter that you're saying, well, no, I'm thinking about it. There was another item that we didn't pull out that pointed out that after the garden party, when men got tired of working, they started writing. When they got tired of writing, they started reading what other people had written. When they got tired of reading what the other people had been writing, then they started criticizing what they'd been writing. That's intercession. That's not thinking. To say, well, now wait a minute. I'm not pondering, the wit and wisdom of Ross Perot here, folks. I am reading serious philosophical works and then pondering what it means. And oftentimes, according to who I'm reading, sometimes I'll go out and sit in my little ersatz Zen rock garden and I'll contemplate one of Buddha's sayings. That's intercession. No offense to Buddha, no offense to Ross Perot. Come to think, babe, you ever seen those two together? Or worse than that, I suddenly struck a picture of a certain resemblance. Well, no. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter who or what. It's not just people. It's any idea. If you're pondering somebody else's idea, another quotation, somebody's adage, it doesn't matter whether you agree with it or not. That's the easy way to say, well, you agree with it. Too bad. You disagree. If you even ponder it, you understand it's the same thing as falling on your knees to a priest, grabbing a rabbi by the lapels, asking somebody, help me. Except in their case, with ordinary, they think they're pleading for help for their immortal soul, or I gave you the best one to date of what the religious are. That's people who look in the mirror and hope to see somebody else. That's what all intercession, that's what asking for help is. I know people say, well, I won't help because of my finances or whatever it is. Well, what are they doing? They're hoping to turn to a priest or rabbi, religion itself, and look in the mirror and, hey, finally, it ain't me. Which I guess Sonny Bono can sue me for that version. It ain't me, babe. That's the hope for salvation. Ordinary people, I know they don't use that in their religious terminology, but people that say, well, I want to see God, nah. They can say that, but if I could take them aside a second, so you got any money on your cash? I don't take checks. And I say, I got something better. All these years, you've been going through these rituals and going to seminars and giving money, yeah, and you keep saying you want to see God and you're serious. Oh, yes, that's my... And I said, wait a minute. Would you settle for this? I know a trick. I'm talking about a serious trick. But I can fix it to where when you look in the mirror, they got to understand what looking in the mirror means. What it means is think. But when you look in the mirror, instead of you being able to see God, I can... Now, you sure you got cash? We're not talking about checks, no credit card. He said, yeah. All right. And if he understood me, now I said, I can fix it right now. I can just do this, and you owe me right then, payable. But I can make it to where when you look in the mirror, you'll see somebody else. If he understood it at all, any human on this earth, their pocket is empty. It would be mine if they understood it. Because they'll take that in a minute, all right, in a New York minute, before them worrying about, well, I've been trying to see God now for 30, 40 years, down there ruined my health. And if they understood, and I said, forget that. I can fix it wherever you look in the mirror, you'll see somebody else. That would have been their first mystical experience right there if they were able to hear it, even before they paid me. Taking any idea, whatever it is, just letting it run in your system like a stereo, that you let somebody else's record play and you listen. Forget whether you like it. Your opinion means nothing. You let it play and you listen. I repeat one more. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter whether you go, boy, I like that, or you go, if you think that's important, You don't even have a good stereo system. You got one of those little York things from Kmart or the drugstore, one of those $89 cardboard stereos. But if you're listening, then somebody is interceding. And I say somebody. Something is interceding between you and life, between you and the possibility of thinking. Let's make it like a merry-go-round. Now that we've heard the news, we shall analyze the news. Skipping those parts pertaining to death, disease, and pestilence, trusting they in return will skip over us. I like it. Well, obviously.